And the question for this week is, my daughter has told us she's bi, and now I'm worried I didn't talk about the right things. Help! And welcome back to another episode of Sitting in a Car. I'm Sarah Sproul, and I sit in a car with you each week answering a question to help you raise your confident and caring young person who respects themselves and the people around them. This question is important because it gives us a chance to talk about what happens as a parent when we don't get things exactly right. My mum tells a story that when she had me, which was right back in 1971, she was breastfeeding. And she was breastfeeding to the best of her ability. And at that time, the accepted practice was that you breastfed your baby to a schedule. Now, any of you who have attempted breastfeeding or been breastfeeding in this day and age will know that that is just plain terrible advice. You breastfeed on demand when your child needs to be fed because that helps your milk supply come in, right? That's not what my mum was told. And so she was parenting me, little newborn baby, lying in the crib, in the wheeled crib, and I would be screaming 2 hours after the last feed, and she'd be there like, sorry, Sarah, people tell me I can't breastfeed you for another hour. So she would rock me and shake me in the crib and sing me songs to comfort me until it was time for the next feed. Now, in the cold hard light of day in 2020 or whenever you're listening to this, you will know that that advice was terrible. And you will also know that as a parent, when you realize you've done something wrong, it can be really, really hard to know what to do about that. Now, my mum in this story has claimed what she did. She has done her internal work, so she was able to talk to me about that story. And it really helps to know that is part of my history, really helps me to understand things about, myself that I have now around food. And I sort of wonder, I wonder if my attitude to food is a little bit to do with what was going on when I was a very, very small new human. But let's talk about this question. This is about being a parent. Your 12-year-old coming to you and say, I think I'm bi, and you're left as a parent going, oh, I didn't really see that coming, and I'm not really sure if I did things right. I've got 3 ideas. First idea, accept responsibility. So as a parent, we can model what it's like to realize we didn't do something quite right and accept responsibility. So that could look like something like this. I need to apologise for something. I realise that conversations that I might had with you in the past might have assumed that you were going to grow up straight, or you were only interested in men, or you were only interested in women. And I realise now that that wasn't good, and I'm sorry about that. That takes responsibility for something that might have been painful for our child, and it also models to them what it feels like when someone takes responsibility for something they did that might have been hurtful and apologises. The second thing you can do is start noticing in the world where there are assumptions about people being straight. You might notice that in advertisements, for example, if they're showing couples, they're always showing a man and a woman. You might notice that in movies or stories, most of the couples are male and female. And you can start pointing those out to your kid if you feel comfortable doing that. You can say, look at that ad. Why do they always show families made up of a man and a woman? Or the TV program. Why do they very rarely show couples that are same-sex couples? And in that way, you are demonstrating to your kid that you're looking at the world in a different way, and you're keeping them in mind so that they sort of feel like you have their back. Point 3, going forward now, you know that you are raising a child that is part of the LGBTQIA community. That means lesbian, gay, trans, bisexual, queer, intersex, asexual community. All the different sorts of sexualities and interests and orientations that wouldn't be assumed in the world. So what can you do to support your child? You can do practical things like get a rainbow sticker somewhere online and put it on the fridge. You could subscribe to an LGBTQ magazine. If you're an island, that magazine is called GCN. So if you Google GCN and subscribe to that, it's about €30 a month, and you get one magazine delivered to your house in a brown paper envelope that you can leave on the kitchen table or the coffee table. It's just a sign that, rainbow people are welcome and loved and cared for in our house. And this is like supporting our children in any other interest they have. How many of you would support a child to do a sport that you don't like? Like, does your kid play soccer and you can't stand it, but do you take them to practice? Absolutely, you do, right? And there are things that we do for our children to support them and to help them grow into who they are, even though we don't particularly like that thing for ourselves. And absolutely, when we have a child who is part of the LGBTQ community, then we can do those same behaviors for that too. So let's sum up. What were the 3 points to help you manage and support your bi child? 1, apologise for not maybe getting it right and making assumptions earlier in their life. 2, look at all the ways the world assumes that most people are straight and that's not so great. And 3, be a good ally for your kid and demonstrate ways that you support them in this part of their life. And that's Sitting in a Car for another week, where I've answered a question to help you raise your confident and caring young person to respect themselves and the people around them. And while I've got you here, can I ask for your help? Would you like, repost or subscribe to Sitting in a Car? This helps parents just like you find the information and support they need to do this part of their parenting even better. Thanks for that, and bye for now.